let's get started. First of all, this is what would be included in your kit. If you want to check one out, you could get a drafting board, a T-square, and an architectural scale, a pencil, and then we will give you paper copies of a lot of our assignments so that you can continue your sketching. Today we're going to review the architectural scale and how to do a 1 and 2 point perspective drawing. So first is first. This is called an architectural scale. It's actually shaped trifold, 3 points. And the reason being is it has multiple scales on one ruler so that drafters and engineers and designers, when they're sketching something large, like a home or a building, they can scale it down. So if you go ahead and take a look at the end here, it says 16, right? This is the traditional the traditional English system, where we have they're inches, and it's divided into 1/16 of an inch. Some will go all the way down to the 32nd. So this is just a traditional ruler, goes all the way to 12 inches, all right? But now if we flip it, you're gonna start to see, like for instance, on this end, it says 1/8, all right? So every 1/8 of an inch would equal 1 foot, is what you normally would say. And on this end, here's 1/4 of an inch. So when you're designing a house, if you say 1/4 of an inch is 1 foot, so you'd go over from the right, you can see here's 0, then 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot. So if we're designing a bedroom in a big house that has, it's pretty large, like for instance, this is a scaled drawing, okay? This is 7 inches long. Well, if we measure it in real time, it's not. It's 3.5 inches long, which means that this scale is probably, maybe they shrunk it down, I'm not really sure. I'm doing a horrible job explaining this. So my husband is building a cabin, and he sketched this out to turn in for a permit. And he used, you can see this is 12 feet here. So his scale, according to this architectural ruler, is, I just had it. What are you? 1/4 of an inch. One quarter of an inch equals 12 feet. All right. Then that way you can take a massive 27 foot by 12 foot piece of construction and shrink it down to a piece of paper. The best thing about sketching and the greatest thing about putting your ideas down on paper is that anybody across the world is going to be able to understand this. So 1 and 2 point perspective. We won't be using a scaled drawing this time. We are going to be using a scaled ruler for next week, and probably another one after our winter break. So it's a really great thing to get to know these and understand it. All right, but today it's going to be a straight edge, and that's it. We can go ahead and get out our T-square. So this is called a T-square pretty much because it looks like the letter T, and it's going to square up something. So this would be a great time for me to say, what does squaring up mean, right? It means to make a 90-degree angle. So we have a 90-degree angle right here. These T-squares are really nice. They actually have inches on there for you. Okay, if you're right-handed, so if I slide this down, okay, the edge of your drafting board, you never want to draw on your drafting board. It's soft wood. You take your T-square and you can lock it in tight on the left-hand side. All right, then it gives you this perfectly straight edge. So we need to line up our paper. So lining up our paper, I'm going to draw over here to the right because I have a little bit good light there. I can line it right up on that T-square. You don't need much tape. You're going to draw this horizontal line, and I suggest that you put it not smack dab in the middle of your paper, but maybe just a little bit above. All right, so go ahead and draw that line all the way across. This is called your horizontal line. Write that down on your paper. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to give yourself 2 vanishing points. These vanishing points are where your eyes are going to stop, okay? So the horizon means this is going to be the earth and this is the sky. So it's where the earth meets the sky. We have vanishing point 1 and vanishing point 2. Go ahead and label vanishing points. And this is where you can use your ruler as a straight edge. If you have a ruler at home, you can, or just a piece of wood, something that's straight, that works as well. This should be almost in the middle of your piece of paper for this first drawing that you're gonna do. And you wanna go above the horizontal line and below the horizontal line. I mean, you can, don't make it huge, don't make it tiny, all right? So once I have this, you're gonna start to connect all of your lines to these vanishing points. So this is where you're gonna need your straight edge. So I'm gonna connect my vanishing point to the front of my building. So it's gonna be front. I'm gonna go very light, very light. If I had a pencil that was a little bit lighter, that would help, but I don't. Okay, make sure you've got a good eraser. Again, if you want these kits, you can check one out for the whole trimester for sketching and drafting. Set up your own little drafting table at home. It would be pretty cool. And go ahead, and we're gonna give ourselves, put up my T-square. So sometimes kids, just for this drawing, we don't normally do it, they'll bring their T-square on top like this, okay, and lock it into place. I'm gonna make it kind of a taller, skinnier building this time. Slide it over. Okay. All right. Once I've got that here, this is my kite with my first building, and I want to erase the lines. I don't need this line. I don't need this line. And I don't need this line because my building is not see-through. All right, great. So now I have my first building. The next thing I want to do is give myself a crossroads. So for the crossroads, we're going to start at the vanishing point, okay? And you can line it up with the building, and then you're going to slide it just a little bit over. This also should be a really light line. Boom. Then leave it on this vanishing point. This is your pivot point, okay? It's your pivot. It's your pivot foot. You want to always, everything is going to go back to these vanishing points, everything. If you get off of those vanishing points, your drawing is not going to be in perspective. So start the building, go a little bit further down. Bam. Line it up. And bam. All right, cool. So now we have 2 roads, right? And we need to, I'm going to make them so people know that they're roads. So I'll put, you know what? I'm going to switch out my pencils. And I'm going to go give it the dashed line, like bam, 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 bam. So what we're kind of designing here is going to be called a cityscape, where you can do the whole city and in a 2-point perspective, which is pretty cool. We will get into isometric drawings with our 3-dimensional 3 views later on. All right, so I have my roads. Now I can come through and erase these little middle parts, right? Because we know that is not what it looks like in real life. So I'm going to give this building some windows. And in order to do that, you want to make sure you are, again, connecting everything to your vanishing point. So vanishing points are here. And we can go down. And then these lines are all, the horizontal or vertical lines, excuse me, are always squared up. Don't freehand these, okay? Because they need to be parallel with each other. So I'm going to give it like Maybe I'll give them 3 windows there. All right. Oh, we'll add another one. So I could make this look more like, I could frame it up. I can give it a little bit of a glare so I know what it is. Okay. All right, now I want to add another building. So when you want to add another building, you basically just have to cross that horizontal line. So let's add one here. If it's below the horizontal line, you aren't going to be able, and again, we just got to connect it to these vanishing points, but it's not going to go all the way down, right? It can't go through this building. So we'll just go right to the top of that building. We also want the bottom of this building to connect to these vanishing points, okay? This is where a lot of kids forget to do that. And they'll have this like going into nowhere's man's land. Now you might think that this is a really steep building, but where we would be standing here, it connect that vanishing point and scoot back, okay? I'll get my vertical line squared up. Square again is 90 degrees. All right, there's my second building. And you just kind of keep rocking and rolling here. Adding buildings, you can add shade. You can add color. You're going to be graded on doing 5 buildings actually. And the buildings have to have windows, you have to have a crossroads, and they have to be done correctly to the right vanishing point. So if they're not, I'll tell you, and you might have to fix it a little bit. You'll have 5 buildings with, they're going to have windows. You're going to have to have some creativity. That's what all this is going to be marked on. Somebody might wonder, why is this important? Well, we have to be able to know how to sketch and put our ideas down on paper. I had a kid once who wanted to build a skateboard ramp, and he could not explain it to me. But boy, he was in my construction class, and he sketched it out, wrote the dimensions, and we built that sucker to down to the inch. It looked wonderful. So it's a way to communicate your ideas. Sketching is a communication. So now let's say you want to add shade. You can add shade. You can add color. You can come in and add color. You could even add a building on this side. Okay, I'll give you some examples for that. But this is what a 2-point perspective is, and I want you guys to go crazy with your imagination here on the sketch.